cloud went through. I didn't know what it was. So I called the Weather Bureau.
And we saw the tornado up in the air in a big black cloud, which later we figured was Fennessy Lake because that's the way it was coming from. We could see everything up in the air, like little pieces of wood and things going around in a big circle. So we knew it was coming towards us. So my dad said, we're going to get in the car and outrun it. That's what he's figuring. But when he saw it coming towards us, he didn't know which way to go, other than he kept on going forward and it kept coming. So then he turned off and it went the other way, which is lucky for us.
There were people who tried to drive away from it. Some of them ended up driving into it. So there's the age-old question, if you have enough time and you see the tornado coming, should you stay there or try to get out of its path? Ideally, if you have open road and you have time, you can drive away from it if you know what direction it's moving relative to you. Because you don't want to be caught in a car. A car could be rolled over, even picked up and thrown by a strong tornado. And then there's the quandary. What do you do if you're in a car and the tornado's coming? Do you get out of the car and run for a ditch? And that's going to really depend on your circumstance. I mean, if you're close to a building and you can gain entrance to that building, and it's a sturdy brick concrete building, you're probably safer leaving your car, getting in the building. The 1956 tornado obviously was the top of the scale. It was one of the strongest we've ever had in Michigan.
All the houses, our house was safe, and my grandma's was safe, and the next house was Drost, and that was safe, and the rest of them were all flattened.
It was the top EF5, so F5, EF5. Winds over 200 miles an hour, estimated by damage.
And she said they would have like jars of pickles with straw through the jars of pickles, and there was no juice out of them or anything. It had forced them right through the pickle jars, which we thought was quite interesting.
So we will usually get, that type of storm, we will usually get at least 10 to 20 minutes lead time that it's coming. They actually saw this tornado forming south of Hudsonville. There was a civil defense lookout tower in Cutlerville, and they used to watch for incoming ballistic missiles, back then in the Cold War. And they were also weather spotters, because they were high up on this tower. They could see all around town. They could see the cloud base and everything. So from Cutlerville, they had a really clear view of it, and they could see the tornado funnel forming underneath the cloud. And so they called the Weather Bureau office and they told them what they were seeing. And I believe where the tower was at the old airport on 36th and somewhere in that area, Roger B. Chaffee and 36th, was the old Grand Rapids Airport in the 50s. And they could see it from there too. So they issued the tornado warning. Frank Slaymaker was the Wood TV weatherman. He picked up the warning and went live on TV. And that's how a lot of people in Hudsonville heard that it was coming. And they looked out their window and saw it. So they either went to their basement, they went outside, got in a ditch, or they got in their cars and tried to drive away. So he probably saved quite a few lives. Also, Bruce Grant was on Wood Radio, and he was talking about it live as it was going through Walker, Standale area. He could see it from downtown. From the building, he was given a live play-by-play, and many more people heard his broadcast and got to the basement in time. So I would estimate dozens, if not hundreds, of lives were saved because of those two broadcasters.
I hear you, Cal. I see it, Cal. Don't worry, it's not going to suck you up. Yet.
My dad and my brothers went down there, and when they came home, they had told us that there was a cow in the tree. It was the old Paulson house, which was the last house on the road on Cummings, but they were trying to get the fire truck to help it. It wasn't hurt, but it was caught in the crotch of the tree.
Where it started was pretty rural, and it's still pretty rural in Hudsonville, just southwest of Hudsonville. It still looks fairly similar, except I 196 is cutting through there, but otherwise it's farm country just like it was then, greenhouses. Once you get to the Jenison area, Georgetown Township, there's been a real explosion in residential area there. What was farmland before is now residential area. Their population has increased 9 times in the last 60 years. So if you look at the map where it went through there, now there's all kinds of subdivisions, there's all kinds of apartment complexes. It's just totally filled in from what it was back then. And it was farmland then, now it's residential, very thickly developed residential. Then once you get from there, Walker-Standale area has obviously been developed more. There was a lot of farmland there too. And then the most amazing part is when you cross Interstate 96, which wasn't there at the time, Alpine, just north of Interstate 96. That was a golf course and a dairy farm. And now it's totally zoned commercial, and you got restaurants, you got stores, you have the potential for, you know, hundreds of people to be in the path of it that weren't there at that time. It crossed 131 just north of Fifth Third Ballpark. So you can imagine an F5 tornado moving across that area now with you know, a baseball game in progress and hundreds of thousands of people in that area. Paralleled West River Drive and then up to Rockford. Again, a lot of farms in that area have been developed into the subdivisions. So that stretch from Jenison to roughly West River Drive, you know, you've seen a really big increase in population density. So the threat, and that's what we say, the technology's gotten a lot better, but the vulnerability has increased as well. So would we hold the death toll down? You know, there were 17 people killed then. If you look at the population density, even figuring in the advances in technology, we'd be doing really good to hold the death toll that low if it were to happen again. And it would just be, you know, because there would be people who would not get the warning and they would be out. There have been 0 violent tornadoes, F4, F5 tornadoes with wind speeds strong enough to severely damage a house. So wind speeds roughly 150 miles an hour or more. We have seen 0 since 1977. So we're going on, you know, 44, 45 years without seeing a tornado like that. But in the 24-year period from 1953, there were 19 of them. And they were basically in April, in the springtime. Anywhere from April 3rd, June 8th. June 8th was the Flint tornado. You ask any of the old timers from that area, they remember about that, and it was just entire neighborhood leveled. You know, you had over 100 fatalities. There were houses piled up on top of houses in a whole neighborhood gone, just flattened. Very rare to get that in Michigan, and it's to the point now where we haven't had anything like that in so long, you know, over 4 decades, that people don't have the reference frame to them and the common belief that they don't happen here. So if you look at the 50s, 60s, and 70s, we were getting hit every few years with really bad tornado outbreaks. We have caught a break in the last 40 years, and eventually that's going to end. So people have to realize that they do happen here, but they will happen again. And that's the main reason why, you know, we do these documentaries, not only to talk about, you know, that event, but to give people an idea of what's possible and what they should be prepared for going into the future, because it's only a matter of time before we see another one of these type springtime tornado events.